Media Group. 45 years of inspiring Malaysians.
Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Yong Poh Kon, Chairman of Royal Selangor International. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Sri Wong Chun Wai, Group Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Star Media Group. Directors of Royal Selangor International, Senior Management of Star Media Group, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to Menara Star. Thank you for joining us today for the first installation of Star Media Group's Power Talks for 2017. I'm Anis from Star Media Group, and we're really excited to see such a fantastic turnout today. Due to the overwhelming response we've received today, we'll be extending this session to live stream available on www.thestartv.com/live/powertalks. So please put on all your smiles. Ladies and gentlemen, our role as a media company is to keep Malaysians informed and inspired through our content and services. We wish to continue to offer the best-in-class products and experiences. Our Power Talk series, presented by StarBiz and Star TV, was created for readers of the Star to get up close and personal with high-profile leaders and captains of industries, and our way of connecting with our readers beyond the printed words. Today, we are really honored to have with us today Tan Sri Yong Poh Kon, Chairman of Royal Selangor International. And I'm sure after this talk, you'll be empowered and inspired by his compelling views and insights. At the end of the session, there will be a Q&A opportunity with our speaker. To tell you more about Tan Sri and his illustrious career, let's invite our moderator for today, Mr. M. Shanmugam, Specialist Editor of StarBiz, up on stage. Mr. Shan.
Thank you, Anis. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another session of the Star Power Talk Business Series. We had a short break, I think almost about 1.5 months, but now we are back, hoping to bring another round of key personalities in the business world to give their insights. Ladies and gentlemen, there are not many companies that have lasted beyond 3 generations. We have with us here Chairman of Royal Selangor International, Tan Sri Yong, who helms a company that's into its 4th generation. That itself is an achievement. Thank you. Now, Royal Selangor is a family-run business. As we all know, it's managed by the Yong family. It has a global reach and is easily one of Malaysia's best-known brand ambassadors. The products are found on the shelves of the high-end luxury outlets, as well as the medium-range outlets in established markets such as UK, Australia, some parts of Europe, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Now, the market segment that Royal Selangor competes in is really tough, really tough. Not many brands last beyond 10 years. They are there for many more. They have been there for many years. And I think going by this way they are, they will be there for many more years to come. For a company whose products are exported to more than 20 countries, Royal Selangor indeed is a small outfit. It's only got 300 employees in a factory in Stapang. And what's more interesting, it's really interesting, It's got 132 years of history behind it. It's a rich history. And the outlet and the factory in Star Park attracts easily about 150,000 visitors every year. That's really great. The story of Royal Selangor started in 1885. I will not go too much into it. I'll leave Tan Sri Yong to say more. But he started with his grandfather. He came from China. They had their first shop in Pudu Road. And it has survived the World War II. They didn't have banks, no credit line, no facility, and all those things. And Pewterware itself, they've managed, it has evolved. It's not something that people consume every day, but it is the sheer innovation and ingenuity of the Yong family that has seen pewter products continue to be in demand until today. Tan Sri graduated with first-class honors in mechanical engineering from the University of Adelaide. Cheers, Tan Sri. And he's responsible for modernizing the factory, the production factory in Star Park. Although he no longer runs the day-to-day, he's handed over to his children, the fourth generation now. But he's still the person that many looks upon when you talk about Selangor pewter, Royal Selangor, and pewterware. In the last few years, Tan Sri has spent a lot of time bridging the gap between the private and the public sector. He was co-chair of Pemuda together with Tan Sri Siddiq until 2013. Okay. He now sits on the Economic Council, and he still is the gap for the private and public sector. Now I leave the stage to Tan Sri Yong to tell the story of Royal Selangor International. Tan Sri, welcome.
Thank you, Shan and Anis, for the introduction. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be invited to come to speak at your Power Talks. And I see a lot of familiar faces here from different sectors and different fields of society. I'm going to talk about three areas. First of all, the Royal Selangor story, and then after that, I'll call the Pemuda journey, which I'll explain in greater detail. And then the third thing is something I think many of you are quite interested to hear about, is the dual language program for English. Shan has says 1885, my grandfather came, and at that time, from Palong to tin dredges, we were already producing half of the world's tin. For a small little peninsula like Malaya, that's quite a big achievement. And normally, where there's a tin industry, there is a pewter industry. Like, for example, in Europe, they have tin in Cornwall. They made pewter urns and bowls and plates, and they were actually used in everyday households until they discovered porcelain from China. And then, of course, all the pewter plates began to disappear, but you still have pewter goblets and pewter urns and basins. In the East, pewter was used more than 2,000 years ago, mainly for ceremonial purposes, and you can still see them if you go to some of these Chinese temples. And in the Malay Peninsula, when pewter was first used, we made items like those, and also ordinary teapots, not only for the houses, but also in rubber estates, huge teapots where we can see those items. So 1885, Yong Kun came from Shantou in China and started the pewter business. This is a picture of a shop house in Cross Street. It still exists. And I'm not sure I can point to. The laser doesn't work? Does it work? Oh, doesn't work, the laser. Oh, it's just a cursor. How about that? Okay. So this was Yong Kun here, but more interesting is the lady upstairs. In those days, ladies not allowed to be taken a photograph, you know. But that was my grandmother, who then peeked out at the window and got her picture taken at that time. So there's a lady's ingenuity. But she was actually quite instrumental because she was the one who saved the money for the family to buy another shop house, which I'll show you later. This is it. This is in Pudu Road. This is in the 30s, 40s, 50s. You can see Selangor Pewter, Malaya's finest gift, you know, and 2 motorcycles parked down there. And this was the shop house in which virtually I grew up upstairs, because downstairs was the factory. And in our school days, there's me lead at the first going down, my brother Poshin, and my father on the extreme right. So we literally grew up in a factory environment. In 1947, this was our price list. You can see, you can even buy a tea set for, how much was that in those days? 55 ringgit. Imagine a full tea set. Now it's probably 2,000 ringgit, you know. So you compound at 5%, that the price is about right. The value of the ringgit at that time was a Malaysian dollar. We also have different types of advertisements. Another brand belonging to the family was Malayan Pewter. And of course, how to clean pewter, Selangor pewter, durable. This was early in the 1940s. And then after the war, the marketplace was a lot of the armed forces, beer mugs, even cigarette boxes. And we used to have advertisements, send home. This is directed to the British and the Australian, more British. Duty free into UK. Now you don't need TPPA, you don't need duty free, because last time Malaya was a British colony. So they sent everything back to Mother England duty free. No scouring, no polishing. The last line there, to make your hearts thrillingly happy. You know, those was the English in those days. On sale, NAFI canteens. Many of you do not know what's NAFI. Navy, Air Force, you know. Those were the days where the British Army, they have these duty-free canteens. Beer at a fraction of the price because it's duty-free. And most of the shopping is done there. And we literally say, ask for a copy of our 1949 illustrated folder from any of the managers in the canteen. So this was the environment that was existing in the 40s and 50s. In the 50s, 1955, that's my father, Yong Peng Kai. Oh. What is this? How do I get back? Yep, with Tunku Abdul Rahman. In his hand is a beer mug. No problem in those days, right? So this is in the 1950s. In 62, we move on from that shop house into a new 4,000 square feet factory in Star The factory at that time was about $120,000. You can build a big factory. Well, of course, at that time, you know, a Mercedes was probably only 15,000, and you can buy a single-story terrace house for 18,000 ringgit. So we got a loan of 80,000 from Malayan Industrial Development Finance, MIDF, in those days. And of course, it was very bureaucratic. It was just started. It took a long time to get the loan, but we finally got it, and that was how it formed. And in the early days, we also had the National Productivity Center, the NPC, who had, I still remember some of those ILO experts, very old engineers who came to help to lay out the factory and help to design some of the machinery for us. So those were real instances of where you call direct government assistance helped to build an SME to increase the productivity. We even have famous film stars like William Holden, you know, who came and they did a film here. And that was my mother, and that is my other sister, Manha, who's now in Australia. And she was already in Australia promoting our products in Myers. As you can see, in those days, we literally had to go out with the products with a small machine, go to Myers department store and demonstrate how pewter was made. And this ad, I don't know whether you can see it or not, but it is in 1981, this particular ad. That was 30 over years ago. We started this export promotion. The next one I want to show is, of course, me in my youthful days, right? I graduated, came back, and one of the first few projects we had was the Bank Negara, how do you call it, building. I'm not sure how many of you know Syed Ahmad Jamal, great designer. You know, unfortunately, one of his monuments got removed a few months ago. But he was a talented designer. Bank Negara was looking for a mural, and here was Tun Ismail Ali, because we were commissioned to do this mural. And you can see the huge, on the right-hand side, pewter mural, a pewter model of the brand, the Kijang, 7 feet tall. And Tun Ismail Ali, he's a perfectionist. He never lets any documents go without underlining and where the grammatical mistakes are. He was very meticulous. He insisted on coming to see how it was made and whether it was in good top form or not. And so this was a picture we took of him. Then, of course, the Sultan of Selangor visited our factory, and you still have the Menteri Besar at that time, Dato' Hormat Rafiee, right at the extreme left. And he actually gave us the royal warrant to call ourselves Royal Selangor Pewter. And when he did so, the State Exco didn't know what was all about, and I had to actually go and appear before them and say what the basic principle was, that the royalty could assign royal warrants to companies which have either distinguished themselves or which is of service to the royal family or to the country. So we will then, shall we say, begin to change our name to Royal Selangor International in those days. And these are the 4 of us, my siblings. Shan mentioned we are actually the 3rd generation, from grandfather, father to now the 4 of us. My brother Poshin on the right, Manha and Mankin. Mankin is also here today, the lady in Cheongsam to be with us. So with the 4 of us, we ran the company until 5-6 years ago. And today we have, of course, Chen Tian Yu, my nephew, and my son Yong Yun Lee. They are actually running the company for us. So Royal Selangor today essentially is located very close by. It's on a 12-acre site in Stapak, and we have literally hundreds of thousands of visitors every year visiting the factory and what we call the demonstration center. Upstairs, we have a museum, and we also have what we call a school of hard knocks, where you're given a piece of pewter and you shape your own pewter bowl, all in a matter of less than an hour. And this is a very popular, shall we say, excursion up to the factory. We posted this picture onto our website, and in a matter of weeks, we began to get complaints from United States, Europe, to boycott our product because it's child labor. You know? So we have to, shall we say, to be politically correct in what we post up. And TripAdvisor, we get regular comments. There are, I don't know, we have 264 things to do in Kuala Lumpur. We are ranked number 8 as an attraction. This is a factory. All of you are welcome to see it 7 days a week, how we make our products. We're still high percentage of handwork, but as you know, we have to evolve and we have to go to things like now rapid prototyping, and even using computers to design. Star Wars people will know this, the Millennium Falcon, and we have to use automatic machines, engraving machines, to literally carve out from a solid block of pewter this particular model, from which then we would then reproduce for sale in the marketplace. But it's not only computers. Eventually, it is still about design, and this was one of the first designers that we signed up in 1988. It's almost, 30 years ago. And this particular hip flask also won a Design Plus award in Frankfurt. Freeman Lau is another famous designer. He designed this range called 5 Elements. In the Chinese story about 5 elements, various items. And we have also Jamie Yang. Now, Freeman Lau was from Hong Kong. Jamie Yang is really from China itself. And he's one of the first few early designers who worked his way, and he worked for many years in Siemens as an industrial designer, has won more than 100 design awards, and we designed for companies like Audi, Bosch, and with this wealth of experience, he has gone back to China with the growth of China. And these are a whole group of new Chinese designers whom we managed to tap, and he designed this range for us. We also worked with the National Palace Museum to get from their artifacts. They have, hundreds of thousands of pieces of art from China, which Chiang Kai-shek, before he left, he packed all of this in various containers and wagons and shipped it out to Taipei, and where it was hidden in a cave for many, many years. And now, of course, bit by bit, they're taking it out to show, and we have been licensed to make some reproductions on that part. V&A is another museum which, shall we say, have thousands and thousands of items from which we can draw inspiration from. We began also to license with famous authors and their families, because they have what we call provenance. The Lord of the Rings was one of them, Galadriel, Hobbit, and when we licensed with them at that time, it was only with the fact that they've written books. We did not know at that time they were going to make films at Lord of the Rings. So when the films came out, it was an additional boost, because suddenly then Lord of the Rings, the stories and the images began to reach millions of people around the world. And then our licensed products began to take off more. This is, of course, a more famous one. All of you know this. All right? The recent one, and R2D2, of course, the most famous of all is Darth Vader. It's a limited edition, and it's more than, I can't remember the price now, 1,200 or something each, but they are beautifully sculptured by our own Malaysian sculptors. And from the sculpturing, then we began to make the molds to reproduce it, and he's taken on the markets by storm. So we also then organized Design Week, whereby we brought in very famous designers who have worked with us, and people in the marketplace who's in this field. And the audience are students from the design schools, architects, whoever is related in the field of design, so they get a better appreciation of what is possible and the licensing possibilities that's available for those who've got the design. Of course, Lewis Hamilton, F1, and we have Shanghai, the tennis, and this Maybank trophy that we did, which also, Marcus is the Australian golfer who won last year, and he has actually never won a single trophy before, and his boy, asked him, "Dad, when are you going to bring home a trophy?" So this one we gave, in others, Maybank gave him a replica, and the boy was so happy in receiving this trophy that both father and son went to the school one day, to the assembly, and showed it to the whole school. So this trophy really has traveled quite a lot. Selbrand is also one of our daughter companies. It's a joint venture between, at that time, Selangor Pewter, and with two European master jewelers. And that was the first time that in 1973 we brought in the question about grading of diamonds, 18 karat gold into the domestic marketplace. Cummins is another old name which we bought in 1993, and it's got this huge swan, for example, which is as big as this, and various items. But more interestingly, we have what we call 35,000 old molds and tools. I remember going to the factory at that time, looking at it. It's a whole row of cabinets like at the back, like drawers. You begin to open one by one. And by the time I went to the third cabinet, I couldn't stand it. I was sneezing and coughing like mad. I just had to go out because years and years of dust gathered on this particular treasure trove of a few hundred years. Here we talk about the company, not only a company, but companies in general, manufacturing companies, about moving up and down the value chain. A concept that the MITI has introduced to companies, that we cannot only do what we call the central part, where it is the assembly and production. The value added is lots more on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side. And it is true, if any company takes a study of the payroll, the average pay per employee in this group, they are certainly higher, the designers or the engineers, than the average factory person. And likewise, the marketing and the distribution people, these are for higher paid jobs. So for any company to try to raise its value added, they of course have to move what we call up and down the value chain. And also up and down vertically, you must go up in higher value items. And that is why we will really spend and invest a lot on our R&D and on our design. And having come up with the nice products, it is no use if you don't have the distribution to sell it. You are always at the mercy of some stores who say, oh, I like this, but I don't like that. And then you break up your range into two. So you also need to set up your own distribution to reach your marketplace. And that is why we then began to invest over the last 30, 40 years, our offices in Singapore or Hong Kong or Melbourne or London or in Toronto or in Japan, so that we are able to reach our marketplace. And not only that, but also to have storefronts where the consumers can see your products and be able to touch and feel in whether it's Sydney or London, and of course your home base, the pavilion in Kuala Lumpur. So essentially, by doing this, you're reaching them and also try to reach them through the social media, where, like today, you're able to reach a much wider audience through the electronic medium. So basically, this is the background on how we evolved over the years, from a shop house to a factory, and to getting good designers, and then improving our distribution. And I think this is a formula which many companies can also follow. Now, the next part of my talk I need to go through is what we call the Bermuda story. Essentially, Bermuda was started to help businesses. At that time, in 2007, the Prime Minister, Dato' Abdullah Badawi, realizes there was a lot of civil servants bashing. There are a lot of complaints about slowness in getting passports, takes 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And so a task force was set up in 2007 to oversee the regulatory reforms to facilitate business. It's an inclusive public-private sector collaboration, and it reports directly to the Prime Minister. And the structure was set up by Tan Sri Siddiq Hassan, the Chief Secretary to the government, as well as myself as co-chair. And there he put in all his I call the red button civil servants. They're essentially the Public Service Department, the Director General, and on his right, the Secretary General of the Treasury. Now, between these three persons, the Chief Secretary, the PSD Chief, and the Treasury Chief, they are called the three wise men. Three wise men because the Sec Gen, he controls the money, the PSD Chief, he controls the posting of the civil servants, up, sideways, or down. You know, so, and the Chief Secretary is on top. So if any civil servant face the wrath of the three of them, woe betide him. Or those who are looking for allocations, these are the three wise men who can decide. And the rest of them, we call the various Secretary Generals of the MITI, or HR Ministry, MIDA, CEO of SME Corp. We even have the Mayor of the DBKL. And of course, the last one, this is an organization chart in 2007. At that time, the Deputy Governor of Bank Negara is now, of course, the Governor. And on the right-hand side are the private sector members, all who have some links with some chambers of commerce or who have distinguished themselves in one way or another. So by doing this, meeting every month in a very confidential basis, we were able to, shall we say, bring up issues and find a solution to them. And you need to build up this confidence. And one of the rules was no replacements. No replacements means you either attend or your seat will be empty. And if your seat is empty, the three wise men will know who is the person who's empty. So there's a tremendous, shall we say, commitment that they have to be there. I remember one senior person was in Holland one day and said, he rang up the Chief Secretary, Tan Sri Siddiq Hassan, and said, well, I'm having a conference here. I may have to miss the meeting. The Tan Sri said, it's up to you. Next night, he flew back to attend our meeting. I mean, such is what we call the commitment to be shown. And in this way, there was progress made. And the best test is, do we trust each other? Someone asked, this bridging of the two. Are you able to trust each other? You can't say yes. The only way it is proven is after 2-3 meetings that in front of the private sector, the government officials, they are arguing with each other in front of us. That means it's a sign of trust that we won't go out to spill the beans, as it were, as to what's happening. So on this basis, we were able then to move on. And we used as our guide the World Bank Doing Business ranking to see how we were performing. And World Bank has this starting a business. How long it takes to start a business? Or construction permit. If you want to build a warehouse in Kuala Lumpur, how many days before you get the approval? Some people say months. How many people say days, right? Or getting electricity, how long it takes? Registering property. So paying your taxes, enforcing contracts. If you have rented a house to a tenant who don't pay you for 6 months and you want to kick him out, how do you kick him out? You don't use an along, right? You have a direct contract with him. How long does it take for the courts to get rid of him? So these are the things that we used to measure. And we started in 2007. We were number 25 country out of 175 countries measured. To start a business, we were the 71st country, not number 1. We're number 71. To deal with construction permits, we are number 137 out of 175. Is it something you're proud of? All right. So you go down. Property is 66. Enforcing contracts, we were number 81. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this. 81. Why? Because you send something to the courts, it will take you years before the case come up for mention, postpone, and then takes you another few years before it's heard. So this was the problem facing us, and we have to solve this. But by forming various groups, bit by bit, by 2012, you began to move to number 18. All right? But construction permits, still 113. But enforcing contracts, you look at it, from 81, we jumped 50 countries to number 31. And as I say, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how that was done. So bit by bit, we went to number 12, because internally at first, we had a target to be the top 10 in the world. And we also wrote early, why can't we be top 10? Because the number 1 is a small little red dot, 300 kilometers south of us. Same legal structure, British laws, same Asian population. If they're number 1, why can't we be number top 10 instead of number 25? So that was driving us. And finally, 2014, we became number 6 within top 10. And that's bit by bit, we were able to improve. There's still more places to improve. But like most things, rules change. And the World Bank began to change the way of measuring, and we then became to what we got, the rules changed, we began to be number 18 again, because the ways of measuring became different. But doesn't matter, from number 18, you've got to aim how to improve all over again. And some of the things we did, e-payment are simple things, all right? 279 number of payments by pushing it every month. But a tough nut was the Foreign Investment Committee. I don't know how many of you know about the FIC. It is a body where last time you want to buy and sell, you've got a company worth 15 million ringgit, you want to sell it, you can't sell it. You must go and ask for permission from what we call an FIC. So many of the investors were very, shall we say, troubled by this. And there was one of the first few, it took us a long time, but in the end, by 2009, 30th June, when Prime Minister Najib took over in 2009, he says, give me 6 months, but actually, after we presented to him, within 3 months, he announced it. And to his credit, this was one of the, what we call, liberalization that came about. We also have to do things like removal of age limit for expats. You know, when a company says Shell, they want to have employ an expat which is 60 years old or 61 years old. Immigration will say, oh no, you can't, because he's too old. But who are you to judge whether he's too old or not? You know, the company is willing to get him on. So these are the small rules that we have to chimp away. Even PR, you know, many of them have married and they want to get a PR. Very arbitrary. We set up a point system for the Home Affairs and Immigration to avoid PR status. Like cooling off, if a worker has worked for 5 years or 10 years or 5 years, they must go away for 1 month, then come back again. So this is very disruptive, you know, so that was also removed. The last one was very meaningful to a lot of people. I'm sure many of you have relatives who has married a foreigner. And in those days, foreigner not supposed to work. So what's he to do? He or she has to sit in the house, and your relative can't stand it anymore. He or she has to migrate together with the foreign spouse. What do? We lose a talent which is important to the country. So after discussions again, we say, let them work. You know, if it's a foreign spouse and your daughter or your relative has studied overseas and got married to a foreigner and brought him, they must have already reached a certain level in educational qualifications. Let them work. So this was removed, and again, then many of our Malaysians could then stay behind and contribute to the growth of the economy. We also introduced the My CO ID. This is my corporate ID. And then with that, it helps to start a business in 1 day. See, last time it took 9 procedures and 11 days. It cost 3,000 ringgit. Then we cut it down to 3 procedures and 3 days, became 3,000. Now it is only 1 procedure and 1 day, because we have 1 common ID for all the companies, for all the, shall we say, the regulatory bodies, whether it's EPF, SOCSO, income tax, all of them will have the same number, and you can finish it off in that matter. So we also established the one-stop center, OSC, where it's only 10 procedures and 100 days, process construction permits. Last time was 37 procedures and 260 days. So that's how we began to cut the process down. Or halal certificate, 60 days to 30 days. And then, of course, this topic which I want to talk about is the new commercial courts. Remember, from 81 to 31, we jumped 50 countries. Because the courts were slow in clearing commercial matters, and business agreements actually end with a clause to say disputes to be settled in Singapore. 6 to 10 years is not uncommon. So there was a Bermuda committee, and we have retired High Court judge, like Datuk Visu, and some of our lawyers from the Bar Council who sat together with Bermuda members, and they made a presentation to Tun Zaki Azmi CJ, and we met with Tun Arifin. Last time was Tan Sri Arifin, and Tan Sri Rouse, and Tan Sri James Fung, and they acted on it. You see, at that time, the judiciary themselves also, under Tun Zaki, was making up, shall we say, cleaning up all the filing systems. He himself personally visited the various courts to see files on the table everywhere, and he said, let's sort it out. There could be literally 20,000 files in that room, but 12,000 of them are old cases or cases which are dead, So that to be thrown away, then you only have 8,000. Then you begin to put it back in the shelves, and through a process like this, is able to increase it. On top of that, he began to employ judicial commissioners. He wanted to ask for more people to be judges because we don't have enough. And he came and actually wrote to the chief secretary, and the three wise men agreed to raise the pay of judges so the private sector senior lawyers could now move to become judicial commissioners and help to move the process along. And I must say with that, all the cases was disposed of bit by bit, but we have a problem. You dispose of so many, we have new cases coming in. So we proposed to them, set up a new commercial court to handle new cases and promise people that these cases will be settled within 9 months. They were talking long time. It won't be fair to the people who've been waiting for 8 years. Well, suddenly you give 9 months. But in the end, they visited other countries, how it was done. So they said, new courts. So step by step, all the old cases, the following year, we started in 2009, September. The following year, where there was 2008, without any more new cases to the original commercial cases, they all came down within 1 year to a matter of only a few hundred. Because we have the new commercial courts which are able to take in what we call the new cases. And these new commercial courts promise 9 months dispose. And they promise that because, number one, no more postponement. These are all new cases. Number two, most of the cases are settled even before it goes to trial. And by doing this, now they are really up to date. And there was such a big improvement that the, the World Bank sent a special team to come and set it up to study what has been done in this particular thing. As a result of this, Malaysia's performance in doing business, all these initiatives from number 25, it went to 23rd in 2010, 21st, number 18 in 2012, 12 in 2013, and number 6 in 2014. So in my mind, I think if a country were to put their mind to it, big things can happen. So at this point, I want to acknowledge Tan Sri Siddiq. Please stand up, Tan Sri Siddiq. He's here with us today. These are what we call positive things, and I think we need to let people know that positive things can be done in the country. And of course, now the current chairman is Tan Sri Hamzah, together with Tan Sri Saw Chu Boon, the immediate past president of FMM, who was now taken over. So that is the Bermuda journey. Then the last part of my presentation is to talk about the dual language program for English. After I finished with Bermuda, I was towards the tail end. The government appointed me to the Economic Council. And this is a council which is chaired by the Prime Minister with the 3 or 4 economic ministers, the Bank Negara governor, and 2 or 3 top civil servants, about 11 or 12 of us. And they meet every Monday of the month, with the exception when sometimes meetings are postponed. So we get on average 3 or 4 a month. And we have to deal with issues which are important. And one of the reasons why I mentioned about English is very important to us as Malaysians because we are a very open economy. In Asia, we are the number 4. We're the 4th most open economy. In fact, until 2-3 years ago, we were number 3. But Vietnam has overtaken, where our trade, import-export trade, is more than our GDP. You know, we buy and sell, that's a very big part. And unlike, for example, the last one, Indonesia, they have such a huge domestic market that external trade is less than half. So for them, maybe English may not be so important, but for us, it is very important. And for companies, it is very important, but as families and as individuals, I can show you a survey done. Different sectors which rank English as important as the course that you studied in university. So if you are in the pharmaceuticals and healthcare, we asked the industry, these are a survey from the industry people, 93% of them say, your ability to speak, write in English, read the instructions in English, in pharmaceuticals and healthcare, is as important as the knowledge of the chemicals that you may know or the chemistry that you may know in your trade. So virtually 70 or 80% to 90%. So English is very important for you who's got young children or got young adults who wants to enter the job market. And unless this factor is fully grasped, we will still continue to have what we call a lot of graduate unemployment. I managed to get these figures a few years ago. Between 1947 and 1967, the last published figures are 1967, of the schools. The blue line is the Malay schools, the green line is the Chinese schools, and then of course the bottom one is Tamil schools, but the most interesting one is the red line from 1947 to 1967, 57, 67, is a huge, sharp increase in English schools. And you can see the effect of the English schools on the growth of the Chinese schools. The Chinese schools are flattening, and I think it will be like in those days, where a good half or more than half of the Chinese in the country actually went to English schools, and less went to the Chinese schools. And we found that by working backwards, the racial composition of the English schools were very, very mixed. Primary schools, if you see the mixture of the English schools, in 2012, the government published these numbers. Sekolah Kebangsaan, 94% Malays. The Chinese schools in green is 88%. Ironically, the Chinese schools are more multiracial than the national schools. So this is the issue we are facing with the national schools. Why are people, the other races, not going? And this is a subject that has to be further discussed. And if you compare the level of proficiency in English, why the private sector says the level of English in our schools now is not good enough. The SPM results is in yellow, right? 16% got A, 25% B, 32% D, and 26% fail. The same students who took the yellow exams, they also took the GCE O-level grades. hello. The O-level grades are in blue, and you can see that we think 26% has failed, but in actuality, 52% has failed. So our standards in the way we measure our SPM, in my mind, is not strong enough. You know, in our effort to show a low failure rate, you know, we are, in many respects, doing a disservice to the students because actually the failure rate is 50%. So the other half has failed. And this is to lead on to bigger issues, because if you go then to the university, and there are many courses done in English, you cannot understand it, you cannot read the reference books, you will come out as virtually difficult to employ. And this is the problem that has been faced. The government knows this. In fact, in the blueprint, they say that we must ensure every child be proficient in English, and the opportunities need to be expanded for greater exposure to the language. The current research, they say, now we have 15 to 20% exposure time for English in our schools, in our national schools. In the vernacular schools, it's even lower. You need more time. And what is how much more? 40, 50%? That's the going rate that's been talked about. We need structural change. So, January 2015, Economic Council discussed this matter, and the decision to come up with a radical proposal. In fact, the word radical came from the Prime Minister. We need a radical proposal to increase proficiency in English, and extend schooling hours to all our 9,000 single session schools. We have 10,000 schools, but 1,000 of them have double sessions. So you say, instead of waiting another 10 years for all to be single session, start now. So they compared, okay, how do we do that, even if they extend hours in the afternoon? And we need to extend it with a mindset. You know, we actually call for a lab. And one of the first things that we have to do is to extend the mindset. Because the mindset could be, oh no, we can do only in Bahasa, we can't do more. And we looked at the National Education Act. The National Education Act, the main medium of instruction is the national language. Main. So we could say the first stretching is, main means how much? Main, is it 51% or 99% is main? You know, can we go from 90%, 80% down to 50%, 60%? So long as the main medium of instruction. But there are also other needs, promote national unity, etc. But more important is this, the last line. Pupils are to be educated in accordance with the wishes of their parents. So, if a parent wants to educate in certain medium, they have to give some weightage to this wish of the parents. So that was the background in which Padu and Pemandu begin to talk about HIP, the highly immersive program, and DLP, the dual language program. And then the phase 1 to define issues was in June, and then we got approval to go into phase 2. And of course, British Council, FMM, everybody came in to help, including Page. And we also have to enlist the public, because when we present to the Economic Council, we must show also that politically there is a demand for better English. So how to do this? We have to ring up some friends in STAR. Please publish a few questions for us and ask them to respond electronically to a website. I also have to ring up Tony Fernandez, because he's got a huge website with his AirAsia, of 5 million or something like that, and please help. And both helped. AirAsia is doing his bit. He also plastered it out to his customers. Please help to take part in this survey. And Star also did the same in a newspaper. And in 1 week, they got 192,000 people who responded, yes, English is not good enough. We want to have better English for our children. And that was one answer, in other words, in accordance with the wishes of the parents. Some may not want it, and I understand fully, but that is your wish. But for those who want, and we are going to say why it's important to want, this is important to do. So the lab started with a lot of senior Ministry of Education officers, and we have a whole range of people coming. And whole range on the left is what we call, on the left is the government side, on the right are the various NGOs and the civil society groups. In the end, we said no extended hours in the afternoon. Single session is enough. Double session is too heavy. And we looked at it, that already now, English is only 18% and 20%. And in Chinese schools, it's only 4% and 12%. Tamil schools also 4% and 12%. And they know, the ministry know, research has shown, with such small percentages, you cannot get the proficiency that you need. So we are back to the question of what happens in dual language. Maths and science were in English. You bring it up to at least 40-30%. At least you have a fighting chance. And this was the thing that we debated, but there were a lot of controversy last time about maths and science in English. There were a lot of protests. That was because it was done in a hurry and it was compulsory. Of course, if it's compulsory, I don't want it. Why do you force it down my neck? We have to do it over a process of time, and those who can do it will be allowed to do it. At that time, you know, the Minister of Education was the former Deputy Prime Minister. Of course, politically, it was very difficult for him to accept this because he was known to say, we must uphold the Bahasa Malaysia, and we have a lot of problems with the implementation of science and maths. But to his credit, and to the credit of that lab, I'm sure I see at least one here. Where's Datin Azima? There she is. Please give her a clap. She's the chairman of PAGE, you know, Parents Action Group for Education. Forefront in the advocacy group to increase the number of hours for English, science and maths in English among schools. And she can remember on this very important day, we managed to swing the minister to agree to do this. But of course, we must do it within certain rules and formats, which I'll talk to you later. But it was, I think, a breakthrough. And where is this gentleman? Yes. He's the Director General, Tan Sri Care of Education. On that day, immediately after this meeting, he tweeted, you know, oh, today is a historic day for English in this country. I mean, it has moved him to that regard. So, these were some of the insights. We started in January with a meeting to discuss it. Radical approach is needed. Then I went to see the KSU, Tan Sri Madina, who's now the new Auditor General. And his officers with Pemandu and Padu agreed to set up a lab. We had the Pemandu lab, and the conclusion in mid-July with the picture with the minister was that, yes, we go ahead, and we are going to then to table it on the 3rd of August to give the final seal of approval on Economic Council. So we were supposed to have on the 30th of July the final meeting with the Minister of Education for sending up to the Economic Council. But on the 29th of July, the Minister of Education and the DPM was dismissed. I don't know whether you remember that. So what it meant to us was the whole team, we said, wow, you know, Datin Azima, we spent 6, 7 months on this project, and he's no longer there. And so we literally had to start again. But to his credit, the new Minister of Education took it on. It just meant a delay of 2 months. But we had a time period because January 2016 was coming, and the landing for the science and maths in English, the last 5 years, the soft landing was coming to an end. If we do not have this program, then those who studied science and maths in English for 5, 6 years in primary school, when they go to Form 1, we will start all over again in Bahasa. So it was very important to get going, and as I said, to create a new minister, went ahead, and the Economic Council then all agreed to, in a budget speech, DLP to be introduced, but it is only an option. This is a big difference. Option for those whose parents want it. So what is it? It's an optional program whereby the schools, they will support the exposure time in the English language for primary 1, primary 4, and Form 1 for science, mathematics. The other 2 subjects, they will perhaps do it at a later stage. But this is very important because then 2016 we started with that, and this year then it moved on to primary 2. And then by the 3rd year, primary 3, and thereafter the whole school who has got DLP will have these students who are studying in English. And it has an option and implemented only where all the criteria has been set. You have sufficient resources. That means the school has got classrooms, got teachers, has got the funds for this, and then the competent teachers who can teach in English. Most important, parental consent. They must agree, and we even approved the form in which the parents got to sign off. Then the 4th one was introduced by the ministry, but the average scores for BM in schools must exceed the national average. Now we may have to tweak this, because by having such a requirement, it literally means that half of the schools in the Malaysia cannot take part. Now, surely that cannot be the objective, because I think what they mean is they must have a certain minimum standard in Bahasa. And I think a proper one probably be about 20% or the lower quartile, You must exceed and must be above the 25% of the average or something of the sort. So this is still a work in progress, but the important thing is it started with 378 schools, attracting 39,000 students, with 295 day schools. We even have what we call residential schools and religious schools in the scheme. So we also have the coming year, 2017, this year, additional 838 schools. We have 139,000 students now in the scheme throughout the country. So to me, this is a good beginning. Next year will be more, and as more and more schools are coming up, we will be able to add to the numbers. There's only 139,000. It looks big, but it is still small compared to that 4 to 5 million students in the school, in the country. So single-digit percentage. This has to go higher. My last slide is on, the government also knows that the older teachers perform better in English proficiency tests compared to the younger ones. If you were born in 1955, your score is better than if you were born in 1985. All right? Because the old schooling, the remnants of the English medium schools were still there. We are the remnants, So they need more teachers. Are there any teachers here? No teachers here? Oh, interesting. Okay. All right, so basically, one of the things which I thought, the Tamil schools have come on board, the Chinese schools haven't. And it's a pity because I think Form 1 DLP is already starting. It will benefit the Chinese school students if they start the DLP in Standard 4. Start Standard 1, 2, 3 in your mother tongue, that's fine. But at Standard 4, you go into English, you have 4, 5, 6, then when you go to Form 1 DLP in English, you can dovetail. But if not, to go the transition from Standard 6 to Form 1 English, I think that will be a very tough task. But unfortunately, some of the Chinese educationists are very, very anti this. But if you ask the parents, I think the parents may have a different view, something to think about. Okay, I think I finished my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri. Your vision to push boundaries not only in business, but in driving the nation's agenda is very admirable.
今日輪到我啦啩？
唔得，今日大結局啊，我要睇㗎。
咁我新聞呢？
點解佢哋唔可以齊齊睇嘅呢？有點心就冇點解啦，因為5個人可以同一個時間睇5個唔同嘅節目啊！
仲係高清同埋可以揀字幕添。
狂風暴雨我都唔使驚，備有兒童模式更加放心啦。
最重要嘅係，一日只需5角錢咋。
立即簽夠30日免費試用，下載先，冇網絡都有得睇啊！
Okay, now we have come to question time. Tan Sri, I would like to invite you to the stage. We heard almost an hour Tan Sri is talking about Selangor Pewter and his role in Pemuda, and I think very interestingly also the amount of work done to have the dual language program for English. So now I invite questions from the audience. Ground rules are quite simple. Just state your name and where you're from, and try to keep your questions short. My colleagues are around. You just raise your hands and they will bring the mic to you. Okay, we have got, okay, start with the one nearest, then we'll come to you, sir.
Very good morning, Tan Sri Yong. Thank you very much for your sharing. My name is Chan, and we really appreciate what you're doing, you know. As I was growing up, I noticed that there is a lot of flip-flops in the Malaysian education system. Because at one time there was a nationalist, they said everything must be in Malay, right? I grew up. Science, mathematics, and everything was emphasized in Malay. I used to write Jawi also. I had to learn Jawi and all that. And I was not even taught my own language like Mandarin, Potonghua and things like that. And then when I went to US to study, I had a full transformation because everything was in English, right? And it was difficult, but I used to carry a very thick dictionary with me everywhere I go, you know. Then when I came back to Malaysia, you know, after working there for a few years, and then I met some of my school friends, they still, you know, culturally, they want me to speak Malay. You know what I'm saying? They say, hey, why can't you speak more Malay? Cakap lah Bahasa Melayu, you know, they said. And I used to learn Bahasa Melayu when I was 4 years old, you know, and things like, and we used to joke in Bahasa Melayu. I still can construct pantons and puisi and all that. But my question is that, how do we move forward? And at the end of the day, I was just wondering, what is the relationship with Royal Selangor Pewters with the education policy in Malaysia? Yeah. And how do we change the mindset, you know, the mindset? Because we definitely have good teachers in Malaysia. but the people are not wanting to change. So how do you change that mindset thing? Thank you very much.
Your question essentially is, how do we take the whole agenda forward? Right? Okay. Change the mindset. Okay. And
Okay,
why
what is the
Tan Sri is
relationship,
involved
eh?
in it?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the relationship between Royal Selangor and education, everybody is impacted. As an employer, when you have applications, we need a lot of staff, either to handle frontline, interact with tourists, be on our export marketing team, to interact with our foreign technology suppliers for our machines. English is important. And if we cannot get that level, there's a problem there. I mean, you are proficient in your bahasa Malaysia, you can do pantuns. I applaud that, and you should continue. That's very good. But I'm saying that for those who are not equipped in English, you are being handicapped. So we must fix, and there are many, many people who may not be fully aware of what a big handicap it is. So
That's the thing. They don't appreciate that.
yes, so you have to change the mindset in two ways. Number one is the opportunities to be given to those, especially to those who have not been exposed. That is, to me, more important. I mean, if you're in a city, at least you know what is the effect of English upon your households, your communities. But there may be more in the rural areas. If they do not get this opportunity, they will not be able to go up to the next level. So the thing to do with even the dual language program, it is getting the first 300 pilot schools. There was a deliberate intention to spread out even to the rural areas. Sarawak has got a huge number of them, and there are a lot of keen schools who are very willing to take it up, and there was a lot of allocation to give to that part. Even in fact, Peninsular Malaysia, there are many rural schools which have opted to come in, and in the new 800 additional schools, there are also many sprinkling of this. So this is by going through this, I don't have time to show you, but there's some videos taken by Pemandu and Padu. They interviewed the parents and the students and how they have improved with this exposure. And when they begin over the next 2 or 3 years, when more and more of this spreads out, they will begin to see the benefit. But the actual benefit will take that full 12 years before it comes. And I would say that this is the way you have to slowly propagate it. I don't think it's something that you can force now, because as you know, in this country, as I said, even the Chinese schools, they are resisting. Not the Chinese schools, but the Dongzhong, they all are resisting it. So this is something which takes some time to overcome. All right? So my relationship, our business, and this is through a period of time, my exposure to Bermuda, my exposure to the Economic Council, bring forth some of the private sector concerns as a company, and also as a parent and a grandparent, that these are something that you feel.
Okay, we will take the next question. Yes, sir. This is a reminder. Yeah. Okay, do you have the mic? Okay, we'll go there, then we'll come there. Do you have a mic there? Reminder, please try to keep your questions short, because we are also running short of time. And we want to give an opportunity to as many people as possible, to ask your questions to Tan Sri. Yes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Victor. In fact, I have prepared this short speech, and I must say before I speak.
Short speech. Can you concise it?
Yes, I will. I must say thank you very much to Tan Sri first. And he speaks from his heart for the unity of Malaysians. Now, language is a tool of communication, knowledge, and not the least unity. On a daily basis, not only on festivals, friends and groups, when they talk and gel together, they develop a bond that is lasting. Now, the best type of approach for me in this country to improve English for all for all future Malaysians, it must be short, simple, and firm. not tons and tons of information, which costs a lot of money, and which is complicated and confusing. Now, anything that is good, we shouldn't be afraid. We should shout to the world, not held back by any groups. To me, any other talks or motives, to me, it's narrow and not right.
Sir, your question, please.
Coming. Now.
I mean, we want to hear questions, we don't want to hear...
Coming soon, sir. So we need now sparks of life to unite Malaysians, NGOs, page, and speakers like Tan Sri, Now, the dual language, I'm coming to my question. The dual language says that wishes of the parents, and to me, wishes of the parents and the child. Now, to me, when I was young, I listened to my parent. But when I can think for myself, I have decided, that I want to speak English and learn English well, besides the Bahasa, Now, when my son was in kindergarten school, he came back to me and says, Daddy, I got homework in Chinese, Mandarin. I said, son, I cannot speak Mandarin. So, to me, not only the parent is important, the person who is going to take up the language, that extra language, any language that is extra is very good. And for those who want it, for those who don't want it, what can we say?
Sir, can you just come to
so my question is the dual program. We must have a no-nonsense approach, not only a few schools here and then. I want to send my son to a dual language school in my area. I don't have it. Only those parents who want it, but I am only one of those few. So what am I going to do?
So you have limited dual language schools that offers dual language program. So how you overcome it? It's a common problem, I think, faced among a lot of parents.
It's true. The number of schools is now only 1,200 schools who can offer dual language program. We have 10,000 schools in the country. So it's still a minority. But nevertheless, if it's popular enough, and if there are enough parents, and the figure is only 15, if you can get 15 parents in your school to want to do it, you have to make that request. And then your PTA, you must have a PTA, Parent Teachers Association. If you galvanize support, get your 15, and then you start your primary 1 or start your primary 4 in dual language for those subjects. So this is something which has to be citizen engineered. You all have to do it. It will no longer be like last time, top down, the government say, you do it, and everybody protests. That is not going to be it. So you have to initiate it. And secondly is, as more and more schools will take upon it, then this will gather momentum. But you must also recognize there are certain institutions which are doing, I must recognize Tan Sri Ashad Ayub. He is the chief in ITM, MIT, Mara Institute of Technology. And he insisted that the students there must learn their courses in English because that is what the private sector wants. As you go in accountancy, engineering, whatever it is. And he has, of course, faced many brickbats, Please, an applause for Tan Sri Ashad. Okay, next one.
Okay, and please keep your questions short. We are trying to accommodate as many people as possible.
Ho Chai, Poh Kon, congrats for your Tan Sri Day for your fantastic work in Bermuda. On the education front, perhaps I think if you can follow the Singapore example, I think we can pick up a lot from them. Like what you said, Bermuda, Singapore came in first. Now education standards in Singapore are so high. Perhaps I think we can learn a lot from there. Now, looking at the present situation, we talk about English, for example. MOE has put a lot of teachers through the English language program. At the same time, we have what we call this primary plus at the lower primary level up to the secondary level. Why can't this be made more fully available through one bestiary net, for example, instead of being only limited to schools, selected schools, let's say under the British Council? The content is already available. The network is already available in 10,000 schools. So I think this can be easily, moved to the rural schools. Likewise for mathematics and science as well. So education can be uplifted very, very quickly. Level the playing field between the urban areas and the rural areas through the one bestiary net. There are hiccups at the moment, but certainly I think these hiccups can be solved. Yeah, I think what you need is people, willing to address the issues, resolve the problem, and then move forward. Mara junior colleges, like Tan Sri Asha said, now fully English medium. Yeah, I don't see why we cannot move faster in this area. Also, I think your chart showed that our education now is very divisive. 94% of the Malay students go to Kebangsaan school. The Chinese, the same way. If the students don't come together, how are we going to get the racial unity? I think education plays a very, very big role in this. So I think...
You're asking why we are not using one bestiary net to the fullest. Is that a question, sir?
One bestiary net is available in all the 10,000 schools.
Okay.
So English program is already available in British Council.
So I think
why can't these be, made available to all the schools?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Well, this must be one of the many programs that the MOE has got to do. And you're right, bestiary net is available. And it's a question then of the Ministry of Education maximizing its usage of what we call the electronic medium to reach the schools. In our case, it was essentially making a move physically into the schools, whereby by converting through an optional program of the parents choosing those subjects to be taught in English. I do not have the numbers about the efficacy of, if you suddenly say subjects are available in bestiary net, how many of the students would be making use of it? I must confess, I do not know the numbers. But it is certainly a topic which, if there's an interest group in this that is able to bring this up, I'm sure the Education Ministry would look through it. I think there's something which, in other words, you're saying leverage on the electronic medium that's already available. I think that's fine. That's good. Yeah.
Okay, the next question, please. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Krishna Jayanti. The question is this. My daughter is studying in Sekolah Menengah, Kampung Baru. They actually allocated only 6 classes for dual language program. And now with the new PIBG, we have appealed to have all the classes in dual language program. But it's still in a process. And they are already going into the first quarter of education. So how we can get a feedback from the ministry? They have already acknowledged our letters.
So you have now 6 DLP classes.
Yes.
And are they going on already? Going on?
Yes.
You need one more class, is that what it is?
No, we have 13 classes.
Oh, you have 13 classes, 6 are in DLP.
And the rest no. And according to the ministry, they say one cannot have the dual language. So
you actually need 7, is that what you need?
We need all.
Oh, you need all?
Yeah.
But you only got 6?
Yeah.
And have they told you it's because not enough teachers or what?
No, because they don't have the BM, the criteria they need, bahasa, the passing mark.
But your school has got 6. They already got the criteria.
Yeah, but at that last year, they only approved for 6, not for all. Because we were not the chosen school. The parents appeal. Now we want the appeal to have all. And we have already written to the ministry.
Oh, I see.
So how can you help us?
Okay, well, we had a similar issue in Damansara, isn't it? Damansara, where they appealed and they got it. So maybe if you let us have your details afterwards, I can't promise to move everything, but we will ask what actually is the situation.
Okay, a lot of questions are skewed towards education. Okay, yeah, that obviously has taken center stage.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Audrey. I'm from KL. Thank you to Tan Sri Yong for your talk just now. It was very informative. I'll put this in a very short question.
Thank you very much.
Okay. From what I'm hearing, there's a lot of gap that is still in existence between the public and the private sector. Be it whether we are going to be starting a business through Pemuda and of course using language as a medium to enhance our economic growth and opportunities for Malaysia as a nation. Now, from what I see from the presentation, do you find that there is still a lot of non-participation in terms of the private sector in order to bridge this gap? Especially from, let's say, the multinational companies. Because if we are actually churning graduates that do not comply to their requirements in terms of their work, and I believe that Royal Selangor International is actually also in participation of DLP due to the demand as we are churning out graduates. So do you find that the private sector, especially if I'm saying from the MNCs, that if they were to participate in a discussion or forum or a setup of such, it will also help the government to see the future intakes of Malaysian citizens as what it is right now?
I think there's a very good point. The participation of the private sector, whether it's MNC or local companies, come in different forms. One form is, of course, participating in Bermuda-like activities to find out what can be done. The other one is directly. I didn't have time to show you slides, but the Ministry of Education is working closely with certain private organizations like Taylor's College or Sri KDU, whereby Taylor's College would directly fund and support workshops in English for their students, whereby over a 10-week program, they will give them additional workshops in English, in presentation or whatever the exercises are. And they can demonstratively measure that after the 10 weeks is over, there is an improvement in the proficiency of the English of those students. So there are institutions or shall we say private sector members who are doing this. But not only companies, it is also the citizenry, the community. We just have a group here. You want to form a DLP, he's alone, he feels very alone. But if through his talking to parents, he can get 15 to get together, they then form the basis of having a DLP class. I'm very pleased to hear that they want to have 13 classes in DLP, but only allowed 6. So these are what we call feedback, which we need to be put back so that the policy makers, the following year, hopefully not the following year in your case, because one term is almost ending, to start as soon as possible. And we do not know whether it's a question of lack of teachers. She says no, so I'm interested, because if it's lack of teachers, we would then need to ask you to get all your retiree teachers who are even 75-year-old, I show you the chart. There's an absolute inverse correlation between the level of English and when they graduate. So if they are able to bring back these retirees out to teach, we have literally thousands of these retirees, even 75. Sri KDU, one of the best teachers, is 75 years old. I'm already 72. Maybe I can qualify, Right?
Okay, yeah, gentlemen there. You will come back here.
Hello, my name is Keng Long. I'm from Petaling Jaya. It is in that advertisement of the Power Talks that says that Tan Sri is also the founding chairman of Mensa Malaysia. So can you tell us how you brought that high IQ society to Malaysia?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
It's a bit different.
You know, completely different. Mensa is for members of the population who score in the top 2% in a intelligence test. Then you automatically qualify. But I must say now, if I were to do it, I'll be the chairman of DENSA. Because, you know, as you age, you begin to lose a lot of your mental faculties. But that was a society which I thought was quite interesting because I was flying on an airlines in the, I can't remember, in the early 70s, where on one of our export promotion trips. And in those days, what do you do in an airline? You know, you read the magazines they provide, Reader's Digest. There's a 10 minutes quiz on Reader's Digest. So you sit down, take a pencil, and then you tick. At the end of it, you check the result. You say, oh, you got good chance to apply for Mensa. Please do so. So you just write a letter to them, and you pay, I can't remember, £1 or £2 for the question paper to come to you. You fill it up, and then say, oh yeah, that's not bad. Now you must go for a supervised test. Then you will pay, I can't remember now, £10 higher, the price is higher. And a supervised test, you must nominate a member of parliament, a lawyer, or a teacher, or a doctor to supervise you. And I got a doctor friend, and he sat down for 45 minutes to do the test. And at the end, he signed that it was done by me and not by anybody else. And wait for another 1-2 months, and then the result came, yes, you qualify for Mensa. That's how it started. Then I began to start a group among Malaysians, you know. And STAR was instrumental in that. STAR, at that time, I said, look, you know, I need to get people to apply for this test. And to get the interest, we started every week 3 or 4 IQ tests to put on STAR. And then people begin to have confidence. They feel, oh, I can do this, I can do this. Then we say, let's have a meeting, a supervised test. I was the supervisor. You're 40, 50 people together, and they fill up, and maybe some of them will pass, and then begin to join the test. That's how it started. Now we have a Malaysian Mensa. So those of you, please Google Malaysian Mensa, and you can fill in those questions.
Yes, next question. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Tan Sri. My name is Go. I'm a father of 2 children. One of them is 18. My daughter is here, and I've got a son, 14. All this is 2017 already this year, and we are still, you know, on this issue about language. You know, there are more important things about high income, driving our country to be high income, highly skilled, focus more on engineering, on medicine, on more important industrial skills for our children and for our grandchildren. So I think it's about time, I think we also focus our resources and our time and energy on all these important education.
So to move away from emphasis on language.
No, let's sort out the language quickly, then let's move forward and focus to
on industrial
develop
training.
Our future generations to be more highly skilled.
Is that a question or comment? Question.
Yeah, both. And how are we supposed to do it quickly? It's 2017 already.
Okay.
Very quickly, it is true, there are many other new things to learn and to change our curriculum. But fundamental to this is your language proficiency, to tap into it. So much so now, it's true, last year or so I think they announced that graduates, they must graduate in English to certain bands, you know, in the classic band 1, band 2, band 3 under the MUIT system. And they must say that for an ordinary arts degree or whatever it is, they must graduate minimum a certain level. If you're engineering, you must be a certain level. If you're going to do law, you must graduate with English. It is an attempt to tell the universities that during the course of the 3 or 4 years, if your input material is not strong enough in English, you must do extra things so that at the end of 3-4 years, when they graduate, their English is of a certain level. But this is like catching or closing the door when the horse has gone, you know. They should fix it in primary, and they should fix it in secondary. And in a way, the dual language program is one of the ways to solve it. But what you say is true. You must get that right.
Oh, yeah, at the back there.
Good morning. My name is Wai Leong. Thank you, Tan Sri Yong, for the informative talk. I have a few questions. What do you consider good design? Number one. Number two, will you consider Red Hong Yi to design products? Because she has done many works, like, for example, the painting or the work on Jackie Chan and stuff like that. And number three is, will you consider setting up a design university or design school? Because this is one way I can see it's not just a logical but a radical step towards making Malaysia a high-income country. Because we cannot compete very well on technology as of now, but we can compete with the world with design. Because now everything is on design. Like, number fourth question is, what is your take on Industrial Revolution 4.0? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Finally, a question on Selangor Pewter.
Well, do in the reverse. The Industrial Revolution 4.0, we talk about Industrial Revolution, and now 4.0 is where the whole interface of the internet, electronics, everything coming. It is already here. I've tried to allude to it just now when I start to show you some of our rapid prototyping, the Falcon Millennium, where we used to do, shall we say, right from the beginning, from a clay to model it, to make the molds. But of course, unless your designers are trained in 3D design, to imagine and design on the computer, once you do that, you speed up what you call your time to market and shrink it. We've just been discussing with some of our local universities here on industrial design to see how their graduates could be able to fit into this new world. Because in a final analysis, you ask what is design and can our people do it? We have different designers doing different things for us. And it doesn't really mean that you have to go through a lot of industrial design training to do this. A few years ago, we had a nice competition where just graphic designers or painting designers or people who paint came and did some products for us, for a limited edition, for some charity, and we saw some beautiful things which were made. So in other words, in any particular medium that you are trained in, you can synthesize and make into products which are very interesting for consumers to buy. And whether we set up a design school or not, we won't go and do a full-fledged university design school, but our design department is already a training ground in many respects. We welcome many talented designers to come for internship, or those who are very qualified in industrial design, graphic design, whatever design it is, to join us, because in there, we are one of the very few, what we call the value-added chain, from beginning, these concepts, product development, design, making the prototypes, changing the prototypes. From the prototypes, you look at it, not good, ask the market, not good, we change it, then we make the molds, making molds, then we do production, and post-production, and packaging. Packaging is also very important, how you package your products, and then the marketing of your products, your brochures, how you launch it, the way you display it. Window display is also an important part because we have retail showrooms. And from then on, you distribute to the stores, distribution, internet. It's a whole value chain. So talent is always necessary for us. And anybody working in any segment of a company, over a period of years, they are free to select which areas they would like to do. For example, our international marketing manager joined us as a purchasing guy, So different people change over a period of time. And as you soon to recognize their ability, you post them, you grow them, and eventually they find a segment that they like very much. So this is how, from design all the way up to marketing and distribution, you can move.
Okay, we are down to last two questions. Anybody from this side? Or you again? We give the gentleman behind. Then we will come there. Yeah, hang on. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody on the floor. My name is Francis. Basically, Tan Sri, I admire you build up the empire of the Selangor and Royal Filter. In the globally, everybody know now. I appreciate that the name was honored by so many people, and people liked the filter very much, especially on the tourists. I recall on my past history, I was a civil engineer with the George Cohen, the 600 group. When the time I was the first person to see you in the Selangor filter for Colchester Lake and Harrison. I am the first person to show the machine to you. That time was a manual machine, Colchester Lake and Harrison Lake, and plus the bridge board. And at time we had to go send our technical people to train your people to do some machining all the parts. And today I'm proud to have see the Royal Selangor in the top of the global marketing strategy. And thank you, Tan Sri, for your kind. Give me a chance in the sale for that period. And now I'm already 71 years old already. One junior years behind Tan Sri. And thank you very much. And I hope the Royal Selangor will keeping up in the achievement for the world on the market strategy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the compliment.
I just want a quick comment on that. You know, that must be 30 over years ago when that happened. We could only afford at that time China lathes, very cheap price and all this. But Colchester and Harrison was one of the top lathe machines, and we really, shall we say, appreciate the good product that you sold to us.
Okay, one last question, gentleman there. Yeah.
My name is James Luke, social media player. Mr. Shanmugam, India is a very big country, it's very strong in English. Tan Sri, China, Japan, not so good in English. English is just a tool for communicating. It's not a tool for ensure success. Is your father or grandfather, is it English because of the success of Selangor Pewter? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good point. What I did not mention, you saw our trading nation, we are number 4 in Asia. 150% trade compared to our GDP. If we are like Indonesia, 50%. If we are China and India, your domestic market is huge. You really don't need to look out so much. You have a huge market. But we are a small little country, 30 million people. We must be able to have the tools to tap into it. I'm not saying English is the main cause of your success, but it's an extremely valuable tool for you to tap into the global markets. Another thing is this. China has got one now of the biggest internet number of users. Their users for internet is so high, but the amount of what we call scope in the English language among the Chinese website community is very small. It's a huge scope because like on the converse side and the rest of the world, English websites is so big. The number of users is not as big as in China, or India combined. So the English language, if you're in websites, etc., is a very important tool, and you click that, convert your English sites into Chinese where they can understand, is also a big thing. So depending on which market you're looking for, the language of that locale is important. But geographically, if we want to tap in, we need to have a strong level of English. Otherwise, it's not so easy for us.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tan Sri. Leave it to Anis.
And with that, we have come to the end of today's Power Talks. I'd like to invite Dr. Sri Wong Chun-wai to kindly present a token of appreciation to Tan Sri Yong, together with Shan and a photo. Thank you very much once again, Yang Bahagia Tan Sri Yong Poh Kon, for being our guest speaker for today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming this morning for our Power Talk session. We hope to see you again soon. Do mark your calendar for the next Power Talks at the end of the month, featuring Chairman and Co-Investment Officer, Value Partners Group, flown all the way from Hong Kong, Datuk Sri Chia Ching Hai. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.